The helicopter landed softly on the private rooftop helipad, the setting Hawaiian sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Welcome to the Royal Hawaiian, Ms. Thompson," the pilot said, opening my door. "The hotel manager is waiting for you downstairs." I thanked him and stepped out, the warm, tropical air a gentle welcome. My parents, down in the lobby, probably thought I was lost somewhere in the airport, trying to find a taxi to a cheap motel. They had no idea I had just arrived at the same five-star resort they had. And I hadn't just booked a room. I had booked the entire top floor. My name is Chloe Thompson, and I am 26 years old. To my family, I am the struggling artist, the quiet, creative daughter who never quite lived up to the success of my older brother, Liam. Tonight, standing in the lobby of Hawaii's most exclusive hotel, I was about to show them just how much a struggling artist could accomplish when no one was watching. This whole trip was supposed to be a grand celebration for my parents, Frank and Susan's 30th wedding anniversary. My brother Liam, a successful investment banker, had helped them plan everything. For months, they had talked about nothing else. The first-class flights, the beautiful resort, the fancy dinners. I was invited, of course, but as always, I felt like an afterthought, a tag-along to their perfect family vacation. I didn't know how true that was until we got to the hotel check-in desk. My father gave our family name to the smiling concierge. "Checking in, the Thompson party," he said proudly. The concierge tapped on her computer. "Of course, Mr. Thompson. We have your oceanfront king suite ready, and the connecting suite for your son." She handed them 2 sleek key cards. My father thanked her and they all turned to go. I just stood there, my suitcase handle cold in my hand. He had said, Thompson party, but he had only gotten keys for 3 people. I cleared my throat. Dad," I said, my voice small. "What about my room?" My father stopped and turned, a look of mild annoyance on his face, as if I had just reminded him of a boring chore. He looked at my mother, who just shrugged. "Oh, honey," my mother said, her voice full of fake pity. "With all the planning, we must have completely forgotten about your room. I'm so sorry." My brother Liam just laughed. "Don't worry, Chloe," he said with a smirk. "I'm sure the floor in our suite is very comfortable." They were not sorry. This was not a mistake. This was a message, delivered in front of a lobby full of strangers. The message was clear. You are not important. You are not a priority. You are an inconvenience. Have you ever been made to feel like that by the people who are supposed to love you most? It's a feeling so cold it can steal the breath from your lungs. They expected me to be humiliated. They expected me to cry, or beg them to let me stay. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel hurt. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. "That's okay," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Don't worry about me. I'll figure something out." They looked at me, confused by my lack of a reaction. They just nodded and walked away towards the elevators, leaving me standing alone in the middle of the grand, beautiful lobby. I watched them go. Then, I walked back up to the check-in desk, to a different concierge. "Good evening," I said, my voice now full of a confidence that felt brand new. "I'm here for the presidential suite." The concierge's eyes widened. She typed my name into her computer. "Of course, Ms. Thompson," she said, her voice now full of a deep respect. "Welcome. We've been expecting you. You see, for the last 3 years, while my family thought I was barely scraping by, selling a few paintings online, I had been building a secret. I am the anonymous founder and creator of Ether, the world's most popular travel and luxury hotel booking app. My struggling artist life was a cover for a tech empire that was now worth millions. And this trip, this entire, extravagant celebration for my parents, they hadn't paid a single dollar for it. It was all a promotional partnership, a gift from my company to them. A gift they didn't even know I had given. The story of how I built my empire in secret, and how I'm about to use it to give my family the shock of their lives, is a wild ride. If you want to see what happens next, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single moment. And I would love to know where in the world you're watching this story from. Let me know in the comments. As the hotel manager personally escorted me to the private elevator that went straight to my suite, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my father. Hope you found a cheap motel. Don't be late for our dinner reservation at 8. I smiled. Just then, another message came through, this one from the hotel manager's office. It was a notification that a guest's credit card had just been declined for the dinner reservation at the hotel's 5-star restaurant. The reservation under the name, Thompson. My reservation. I stood on the balcony of the presidential suite, a gentle Hawaiian breeze rustling the palm trees below. The view was breathtaking, the entire Waikiki beach spread out before me like a glittering carpet. In the distance, the sun was a fiery orange ball, sinking into the deep blue of the Pacific. It was a perfect, peaceful moment. Downstairs in the lobby, I knew my family's evening was anything but peaceful. Their world of carefully planned luxury was about to hit a very big, very unexpected problem. And that problem was me. As if on cue, my phone rang. I smiled as my father's name flashed on the screen. "Chloe," he barked, his voice a mixture of anger and embarrassment. "What in the world is going on? They're saying our card was declined at the restaurant. That our credit is no good here. Did you do something? Did you say something to them?" The immediate accusation, the assumption that I, the family screw-up, must be the source of the problem, was so predictable it was almost comforting. "I'm not sure what you're talking about, Dad," I said, my voice as calm and serene as the ocean view. "I don't have your credit card. How could I have done anything?" I let him stammer for a moment, listening to my mother and brother whispering frantically in the background. "Why don't you all come up to my room?" I offered sweetly. "We can sort it out here." My father, desperate for a solution, agreed immediately. "Fine," he grumbled. "What room are you in?" "It's the presidential suite," I replied. "Just take the private elevator." The silence on the other end of the line was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I could picture their faces, the confusion turning to disbelief. The presidential suite? It was impossible. They probably thought I was lying, that this was some kind of pathetic joke. I imagined them walking to the private elevator, my brother Liam probably sneering, my mother looking worried, my father looking furious. They were walking into the lion's den, but they still thought the lion was a kitten. It's a funny thing when people who have underestimated you your whole life are forced to see you differently, isn't it? I thought back to my first year of art school. I had run out of money for canvases and had called home, humiliated, to ask for a small loan. My father had lectured me for 20 minutes about being financially irresponsible, about how my art hobby was a waste of money. He'd compared me to my brother Liam, the responsible one. He had finally agreed to send me $200, but he made it feel like he was giving me $1 million. He had no idea I was about to pay him back, with interest. A few minutes later, a soft knock came at the door of my suite. I opened it. There they stood, my father, my mother, and my brother, their faces a perfect picture of shock. They stared past me at the sprawling suite, at the marble floors, the grand piano, the floor-to-ceiling windows with their $1 million view. It was a world of luxury so far beyond their own suite that it left them speechless. They looked at the room, then they looked at me, standing there calmly, and their brains simply could not put the two pictures together. "Chloe, what is this?" my mother whispered, her eyes wide. "Who is paying for this?" My father found his voice. "Did you meet some rich man? Is that it? Is that what this is all about?" The insult was so automatic for him, the assumption that my success could only have come from a man. "I arranged this, Dad," I said simply. "This whole trip. The flights, the rooms, all of it. It was a promotional partnership. My company sponsored it." Their confusion only deepened. My company. They thought I sold paintings on the internet for pocket money. This is the moment I had been dreaming of for years, the moment where their perfect narrow view of me would be shattered forever. Have you ever had a moment like that? Where you finally got to show someone who had always underestimated you who you really are. I want to hear about that amazing feeling in the comments. The travel app, Liam, I said, turning to my investment banker brother, the one who was supposed to be the genius in the family. The one all your clients have been talking about for the last year. The one that's been completely disrupting the luxury hotel market. The one called Ether. I watched his face. He knew the name. Of course he knew the name. It was one of the biggest tech unicorns of the last 5 years. His face went completely white as the impossible truth began to dawn on him. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. No, he whispered, shaking his head. No, that's impossible. Ether was founded by a man. An anonymous tech genius who goes by the initials, The. No one has ever seen him. He's a recluse. I just smiled. I walked over to a beautiful mahogany side table. On it was a silver-framed copy of the latest Forbes magazine. The cover had a feature story on Ether. I picked it up and turned it around. On the back, there was a personal handwritten inscription from the editor. It read, "To Chloe Thompson, the CT, who showed us all a new way to travel. Congratulations on everything." My family stood frozen in the doorway of my suite, their faces a perfect picture of disbelief. My brother Liam, the investment banker, was the first to process the sheer scale of it all. He understood what being the founder of Ether meant. He looked at me not as his little sister, but as a figure from the cover of the very business magazines he read every day. My father's face was a storm of confusion and denial, while my mother just looked lost, as if the world had suddenly tilted off its axis. The inscription on the magazine was the one piece of evidence they couldn't argue with. It was my father who finally broke the silence. But the words he chose were not ones of apology or pride. They were an accusation. "You lied to us," he said, his voice low and trembling with a strange new kind of anger. "For years, Chloe. You let us believe you were a struggling artist. You deceived your own family." He was trying to flip the story, to paint himself as the victim of my deception. He was trying to take back control, but he didn't have any left. I didn't get angry. I just felt a wave of pity for him. "I didn't lie, Dad," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I just stopped trying to tell you the truth. You never wanted to see my success. You wanted me to be the struggling artist because it fit the story you wanted to tell about our family, the successful son and the disappointing daughter. You haven't asked me a real question about my life in 5 years. The lie wasn't mine. It was the one you told yourselves about me." My mind flashed back to 3 years ago, when I had just secured my first round of major funding. I was so excited I could barely breathe. I called my mom, my voice buzzing with joy. "Mom, my little online project just got a huge investment." I told her. "Oh, that's nice, dear," she had said, her voice distracted. "Listen, I have to go. Liam just called. He's been made junior partner at his firm." "Isn't that wonderful?" She had hung up before I could say another word. They had never wanted to hear my good news. Liam, ever the opportunist, recovered from his shock first. A new, greasy smile spread across his face. "Chloe. CT," he said, the fake respect in his voice making my skin crawl. "This is incredible. We need to talk. Your company's valuation is insane. I have so many ideas. We could take it public, expand into Asia. I could help you. We could be partners, sis." He saw my success not as something to be proud of, but as a resource he could finally use for himself. It is amazing how quickly people change when they find out you have something they want, isn't it? 1 minute, you're not even worthy of a hotel room. The next, they want to be your business partner. Has anything like this ever happened to you? I'd be interested to hear your story in the comments. I just looked at my brother, the man who suggested I sleep on the floor an hour ago, and I gave him a small, cold smile. "A partner? Liam, you've never invested anything in me except for insults and pity. My company has the best investment team in the world. We're doing just fine without you. His face fell, the fake smile vanishing, replaced by the familiar look of bitter resentment. He wasn't used to being told no. I then turned back to the original problem. Now about dinner, I said, my tone bright and businesslike. I know your credit card isn't working at this hotel. Don't worry, it's all taken care of. I've booked the private chef's table for us at 9 o'clock. It will be my treat. This seemed to calm them down. They saw it as a peace offering, a sign that they were about to benefit from my secret new life. They had no idea that this dinner wasn't an olive branch. It was the second stage of my plan. My mother, sensing an opportunity, tried one last, desperate guilt trip. She came over and took my hand, her eyes full of fake tears. "Oh, Chloe, thank you," she whispered. "This is our anniversary trip, after all. Can't we just put all this confusion behind us and just be a family tonight? That's all your father and I want." She was trying to use the word family like a key to get back into my life, now that my life was a mansion and not a tiny apartment. I looked at my mother, at her pleading, hopeful face, and I gave her a bright, reassuring smile. "Of course, Mom," I said. "Tonight, we will be a family." I paused, letting them all relax, letting them think they had one. "And I've even invited a special guest to join us. I thought it was time you and Dad finally reconnected with your old business partner from Ohio." I believe his name was Mr. Miller. The name dropped into the silent room like a stone. The looks of horror and pure panic on my parents' faces told me everything I needed to know. Their perfect life wasn't just funded by my secret. It was built on top of another, much older and much darker one. The name dropped into the luxurious silence of the suite like a bomb. Mr. Miller. My mother, Susan, let out a small, strangled gasp and sank onto the arm of a sofa, her face as white as a sheet. My father, Frank, just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. All the color had drained from his face. My brother, Liam, looked back and forth between them, completely lost. "Who's Mr. Miller?" he asked, but my parents couldn't answer. They were staring at me as if I had just raised a ghost from the grave. A little while later, as I was getting ready for dinner, there was a sharp knock on my door. It was my parents. The fake smiles and forced apologies were gone. My father closed the door behind him, his eyes filled with a desperate, cornered animal fear. "How do you know that name, Chloe?" he demanded, his voice a harsh, raw whisper. "What is this? Are you trying to blackmail us?" My mother just stood behind him, trembling, her hand covering her mouth. I calmly finished putting on an earring, looking at their reflection in the mirror. "My company Ether is global," I said, my voice cool and even. "We have data centers from California to Lagos, and our business is to know the history of travel." I turned to face them. Sometimes, when you're digging through the history of an industry, you find forgotten stories. Sad stories. Stories about small, promising travel agencies from Ohio that went bankrupt under very strange circumstances 25 years ago. I remember my father telling us stories when we were kids. "We started with nothing," he would say, his voice full of fake pride. "Your mother and I had $1 and a dream, and we built this life with our own 2 hands." I used to feel so proud of them, of their hard work and their success. That story, the very foundation of our family, was the first and biggest lie they ever told me. It was a fairy tale, and they were the villains. "You didn't start with nothing, Dad," I said, my voice quiet but cutting. "You started with Arthur Miller's business plan. You started with his life savings. And you started with his trust." I watched their faces as the truth, spoken aloud for the first time in decades, filled the room. "You didn't just leave a failing business," I continued. "You stole his company, you stole his future, and you left him with nothing but debt and betrayal. You didn't build a life. You stole one." My mother finally broke, collapsing into a fit of desperate, gulping sobs. "We were young and stupid," she cried, the words tumbling out between her tears. "We were desperate. We thought he would never recover. We thought we would never see him again. It was the only way we could have a future, a family. Her confession was not an apology. It was an excuse. She was sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she had done. The depth of their betrayal is just staggering. They didn't just lie to me my whole life. They built that life on the ruins of someone else's. It makes you wonder, is there a statute of limitations on a betrayal like that? Does time make a terrible act any less terrible? I would be interested to know what you think. There was nothing left to say. I looked at the clock. It's time for dinner, I said. The walk from my suite down to the private chef's table in the restaurant was the longest, most silent walk of our lives. My parents looked like they were walking to their own execution. We were led to a beautiful, secluded table in an alcove overlooking the ocean. The setting was paradise, a perfect stage for the hell that was about to break loose. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the tension a thick, unmovable weight between us. Then, I saw him. A man in his late 60s, with kind, intelligent eyes that held a hint of old sadness, walked toward our table. He was well-dressed, confident, and looked nothing like the broken man my parents had left behind in Ohio all those years ago. It was Arthur Miller. My mother let out a small, terrified whimper. My father looked like he had seen a ghost. I stood up, a brilliant, welcoming smile on my face. "Mom, Dad, Liam," I said, my voice bright and clear. "I'm so glad you could all make it. I'd like you to properly meet my special guest, Mr. Arthur Miller." I paused, letting the terrifying silence stretch. "He's just joined my company as the new head of our Business Ethics and Legacy Acquisitions division." I looked at my parents' horrified faces. "And his first official project is launching a multi-million-dollar lawsuit to investigate the fraudulent and hostile takeover of his first travel agency, 25 years ago." We sat at the beautiful chef's table, a silent, broken family surrounded by the sights and sounds of paradise. The first course, a delicate and artistic seafood dish, was placed in front of us. It was the kind of food my parents had always dreamed of eating, but they couldn't take a single bite. They just stared at Arthur Miller, the ghost they had created 25 years ago, who was now sitting at their table, very much real. My brother Liam looked like he was trying to solve an impossible math problem in his head. The air was thick with unspoken fear. At my gentle prompting, Arthur began to speak. His voice wasn't angry or bitter. It was just tired, filled with a deep, quiet sadness. He told the story of his friendship with my father, Frank. They had been like brothers, two young men with a shared dream of building a small travel agency. He talked about how he had trusted my father with his life savings, how they had worked day and night together. And then he described the morning he had walked into their small office to find it empty, the bank accounts drained, and a note on the desk saying the business was dissolved. My brother Liam, the investment banker, finally broke his shocked silence. He wasn't looking at Arthur. He was looking at our parents with a new, cold light in his eyes. He saw this not as a family drama, but as a clear-cut case of criminal fraud. "Is this true?" he asked them, his voice low and sharp. "Did you do this?" He was no longer their golden child, their perfect son. He was a businessman looking at a toxic asset, a liability that was about to ruin him, too. My father couldn't speak. He just stared at his beautiful plate of food, a broken, pathetic man. It was my mother, Susan, who answered, her voice trembling as she tried to spin her crime into a sad story of survival. "The business was failing," she cried, her words a weak attempt at justification. "We were going to lose everything. We did what we had to do to survive, to give you and your sister a good life. But the excuse was as empty as their promises to their old partner. It's a difficult thing, to see the heroes of your childhood revealed as villains." My brother was looking at our parents like they were strangers, criminals he just happened to know. "It makes me wonder, where does family loyalty end and your own personal sense of right and wrong begin? Would you stand by a family member if you found out they had done something so terrible to another person? I'd be interested to know your thoughts." I let the weight of their confession hang in the air before I made my next move. I calmly placed a single sheet of paper on the table. It was a legal document, a full confession that my team had drafted, detailing the fraud, the theft, and the deception. "The lawsuit is real," I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. "And with Ether's resources, Mr. Miller will win. Your assets will be frozen, your reputations will be destroyed, and you will likely face criminal charges." I pushed the document towards them. "Or you can sign this confession, and you will walk away with your pensions and nothing else. The choice is yours." Just as my father reached a trembling hand for the pen, Liam spoke up, his eyes glued to his phone where he had been frantically searching old records. "Wait," he said, a new kind of confusion on his face. "It's not that simple, Chloe. The money. Dad made an investment years ago. A silent partnership in a huge land development deal. It's hidden in a trust." This was new. A secret even I hadn't uncovered. The mention of a trust triggered a vague memory. I was a teenager, and I had overheard my parents in a hushed, panicked conversation late one night. I'd heard the words silent partner and the Ohio problem. At the time, I thought it was just boring, adult money talk. I never imagined it was the sound of them hiding the money they had stolen, money that should have belonged to the kind man sitting right here at our table. Liam looked up from his phone, his face pale. "The trust is legally ironclad," he said, his banker's mind analyzing the problem. "It's almost impossible to break. And the initial investment has grown. There's a fortune in there, Chloe. A fortune a lawsuit might not be able to touch." He said the controlling partner on the trust wasn't my father or mother. It was a name he didn't recognize, a holding company he'd never heard of. Arthur Miller, who had been listening to all of this with a quiet dignity, suddenly went rigid. He leaned forward, his eyes full of a new, dawning horror. "Let me see the name of that company," he said, his voice a choked whisper. Liam showed him the screen of his phone. Arthur stared at it for a long moment, and all the color drained from his face. He looked at my parents with a look of utter disbelief. "You didn't just steal from me," he whispered. "You made a deal with him?" I looked at him. "A deal with who, Arthur? Who is the silent partner?" Arthur looked at me, his eyes now full of a fear that was 25 years old. "The loan shark," he said. "The dangerous man who was threatening to destroy me right before your parents did. They didn't just run away with my money. They partnered with the monster I was trying to escape." The delicious food on our plates grew cold. The beautiful Hawaiian sunset outside the window seemed to mock the ugly, dark truth that had just been revealed at our table. A loan shark. A monster from their past was the secret, silent partner in my family's life. I looked at my parents, my demand for the truth hanging in the air between us. The story of their betrayal was not over. It was much, much worse than I had ever imagined. My father, Frank, finally broke. The fight was gone, replaced by the hollowed-out look of a man who has been running for 25 years and has just hit a brick wall. He told us the whole, sordid story. Their travel agency had been in trouble. Arthur had taken out a loan from a man named Silas Blackwood, a man they soon discovered was a ruthless loan shark. Silas was about to take everything from Arthur, to ruin him completely. We were terrified, my mother, Susan, whispered, her voice trembling. Silas was going to destroy the business. We were all going to be left with nothing but debt. And so, they had made a deal with the devil. They went to Silas behind Arthur's back. They offered to drain the company's bank accounts, money Silas couldn't legally touch, and give him the lion's share to hide in a secret trust. In exchange, Silas let them walk away with a small piece, enough to start a new life. They hadn't just stolen from their friend, they had fed him to a wolf to cover their own escape. A cold wave of understanding washed over me. My parents' perfect life wasn't just built on a lie. It was a commission, a payment from a criminal for the greatest betrayal of all. And my lawsuit. It wasn't a lawsuit against my parents for a past crime anymore. It was a direct, active threat against a dangerous man's hidden fortune. I had accidentally picked a fight with a monster. I thought about the global reach of my own company, how a decision in one country can affect people a world away, in a place like Lagos or anywhere else. The world suddenly felt very small, and there was nowhere to hide. I remembered a night from my childhood. Maybe I was 10 or 11. I'd woken up to get a glass of water and heard my parents arguing in hushed, terrified whispers in the kitchen. I'd heard my father say, "He called again." And my mother had replied, her voice shaking, "Just pay him, Frank. The deal is the deal. He'll leave us alone as long as we pay." I now understood. Their whole lives, my whole childhood, had been spent living in the shadow of this man, paying for their silence. This is so much more complicated than I thought. My parents did a terrible, unforgivable thing, but they have also been living in a prison of fear for my entire life. Does that fear count as a kind of punishment for their crime? I'm not saying I forgive them, but it's hard to know who the real prisoners are in this story. What do you think? The entire dynamic at the dinner table had changed. We were no longer enemies, fighting over the past. We were a group of terrified people, staring into a very dangerous present. Arthur Miller looked like he had seen a ghost for the second time tonight. My brother Liam, the confident banker, was pale, finally understanding that this was not a business problem, but a threat to our entire family's safety. He was no longer on their side or my side. He was on the side of survival. I took control. The hurt, creative daughter was gone, replaced by the CEO of a billion-dollar company facing a hostile takeover. "The lawsuit is off the table," I said, my voice clear and firm. "It's too loud, too public. It's like sending a formal invitation to a shark. We can't fight this man in a courtroom." My family looked at me, their eyes full of a new, desperate kind of hope. They were looking at me not as their daughter, but as their only way out. My mind started working, processing the problem not as a family drama, but as a data problem. Silas Blackwood was a monster from an old world, a world of back-alley deals and physical threats. His greatest weakness was the modern world he didn't understand. His money, his power, it wasn't hidden in a mattress. It was hidden in a complex digital trust. It was just a ghost in the machine. And my entire life was about building and breaking machines. I looked across the table, past my broken parents, past the friend they had betrayed, and I looked directly at my brother. "A lawsuit is like trying to fight a shark with a fishing pole," I said, a cold, dangerous idea forming in my mind. "We need a different kind of weapon." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. "You understand trusts, Liam. You know how money moves through the dark corners of the financial world. I understand data, security, and how to break into any system ever built." I paused, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of the brilliant banker he was supposed to be in his eyes. "So, tell me, big brother, how do we steal from a ghost?" The walk back from the restaurant to my presidential suite was the quietest I have ever experienced. We were no longer a family having a disastrous anniversary dinner. We were a small, terrified team walking into a war room. We left the beautiful, half-eaten food behind. The only thing we were hungry for now was a plan. Arthur Miller, my parents, Liam, and I all crowded into the large living area of my suite, the stunning ocean view completely forgotten. The five of us, a strange and broken group of allies, were united by one thing: our shared fear of Silas Blackwood. It was Liam who spoke first, his investment banker brain clicking back into gear. "Okay," he said, pacing back and forth in front of the window. "Let's be clear about what we're up against." He explained that a trust like the one Silas had is a digital fortress. It's managed by a special kind of Swiss bank that values privacy above all else. "It's not like a normal bank account, Chloe," he said, looking at me. "You can't just guess a password. This thing is designed to be invisible and impossible to break into from the outside. It's a digital ghost." I understood what he was saying. I looked at the faces of my family, at the fear in their eyes, and I knew I had to be the strong one. "Every ghost leaves a footprint," I said, my voice calm and steady. "And every fortress has a secret door." I explained to them what my company, Ether, really does. It's not just a booking app. At its heart, it's a massive data and security company. I have a team of the best white hat hackers in the world, I said. They are the good guys who think like the bad guys. There is no digital door they can't open. But, I paused, I have to be able to tell them which door to try. We needed a key. An account number, a password, a name, anything that connected Silas Blackwood to that secret trust. And the only people in the world who might have a piece of that key were sitting on my couch, looking terrified. I turned to my parents. I need you to think, I said, my voice softer now. Go back 25 years. That meeting you had with Silas. The one where you made the deal. Think of every single detail. His office. His desk. What did he say? What did you see? Anything. No matter how small. My father closed his eyes, his face tight with concentration. A memory, dark and dusty, began to surface. His office was old, he said slowly. Dark wood. No windows. He had a big, fancy computer on his desk, but he never touched it. He said he didn't trust them. A new detail, a strange little crack of light. He was paranoid, my father continued. He kept everything in old-fashioned, leather-bound ledgers. He said paper doesn't leave a ghost in the machine. The little black book my father had kept was not his idea. He had copied it from the master. My mother, her voice trembling, added a final chilling detail. He had a safe, she whispered. A huge, old black iron safe in the corner of his office. He tapped it with his ring while he was talking to us. He smiled and said, "This is where I keep my real friends." The answer was suddenly, horribly clear. The key wasn't digital. We couldn't hack our way into the trust from a laptop in Hawaii. The key was physical. It was a piece of paper, an account number, hidden in a ledger, locked inside a safe, an ocean away in an office in Ohio. This changes everything, doesn't it? Our digital heist just became a real-life spy movie. We don't just have to be smart anymore, we have to be brave. It makes you wonder what you would be willing to do to protect your family from a real, physical threat. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken for the people you love? The hope in the room deflated. We were trapped. How could we possibly get into a dangerous man's private office on the other side of the country? We were so close to the answer, but it was locked behind an iron door we could never reach. We sat in a defeated silence, the problem too big, too impossible to solve. But then, Liam, my brilliant, complicated brother, stopped pacing. A new, different kind of light came into his eyes. "Wait a minute," he said, a surge of adrenaline in his voice. "Silas's holding company, the one that controls the trust. On paper, it's a legitimate real estate firm. And every legitimate firm has to have one thing, an annual audit." He pulled out his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "If I can use my credentials to get into the state business registry, I might be able to find out when his next audit is scheduled. That's our window. That's our way in." We all held our breath as he typed, the fate of our family hanging on a single database search. After a minute of tense silence, he looked up, a triumphant smile on his face. "I've got it," he said. "The audit is scheduled for next Friday." A wave of relief washed over us. We had a plan. We had a chance. But just as we were celebrating this small victory, my phone buzzed with a loud, urgent notification. It was a high-level security alert from my team at Ether. I opened it, and my blood ran cold. The alert showed a single flight booking, made just minutes ago. It read, passenger name, Silas Blackwood. Destination, Honolulu, Hawaii. I looked up at my family, my voice a choked whisper. "He's coming here. He lands in 12 hours. The words "he lands in 12 hours dropped like a stone into the silent room, sending ripples of pure terror through my family. My mother let out a small, terrified sob. My father, who had just been telling us his life story, now looked like a man who had just seen his own ghost. All the plans we had just made, the hope we had just found, all of it evaporated. A week was a lifetime. 12 hours was a death sentence. Silas Blackwood wasn't a distant memory anymore. He was a fast-approaching storm, and we were trapped on a very small island. "Why?" Liam asked, his voice shaking as he stared at my phone screen. "Why is he coming here? It can't be a coincidence." My mind was racing, connecting the dots. The dinner. The reveal in my suite. Our family, all gathered in one place. "He knows," I whispered, the horrible truth dawning on me. Somehow, he knows we're planning something. I had been so careful, but a secret is only as strong as its weakest link. Had the hotel staff talked? Had my brother let something slip to a colleague? The paranoia was back, but it was worse now because the threat was no longer a shadow. It had a name and a flight number. "We can't run," I realized. "We are on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. My tech company might be global, with connections from here to your city of Lagos. But right now, my world felt incredibly small and trapped. Our only option was to fight. Our only chance was to get to that ledger, to that little black book in his office in Ohio, before he got to us here in Hawaii. The plan to wait for the audit next week was dead. We didn't have a week. We had tonight. My mind went back to the early days of my company. A huge competitor was trying to buy me out, to crush my small startup before it could grow. They were a giant, and I was a tiny boat in their wake. I was terrified. But instead of defending myself, I did the one thing they never expected. I launched a surprise attack. I released a new groundbreaking feature for my app, for free, just days before they were set to launch a similar paid one. It was a crazy risk, but it worked. The best defense is always a shocking, unexpected offense. This is the moment. The point of no return where you have to decide to fight, even when you're scared. I have to ask you, what do you do when you feel trapped? Do you look for a place to hide, or do you look for a weapon to fight back with? I think I'm learning what kind of person I am right now. "We need to get into that safe tonight," I announced, my voice full of a confidence I did not feel. My family stared at me like I was insane. "How, Chloe?" my mother cried. "It's in Ohio. We are here." I pulled out my phone again, but this time, I wasn't looking at flight alerts. I was opening my secure contacts. "You are forgetting what I do for a living," I said. "Ether isn't just an app. It's a global network. I have people everywhere." I made a call to my head of security, a sharp, no-nonsense man named Ben who was a retired FBI agent. "Ben," I said, my voice low and steady. "I have a situation. A Black Ops level emergency. I need a team on the ground in Dayton, Ohio, in the next 2 hours. I need a safecracker. I need the best." There was no hesitation on the other end of the line. "Consider it done, Ms. Thompson," he replied. Just like that, I, the quiet artist, was assembling a team to commit a multi-million-dollar burglary. This is where things get really intense, and maybe a little morally gray. I was about to break a dozen laws, to go after a man who was even worse. Does a good reason ever make it okay to do a bad thing? I'm wrestling with this, and I'd love to know where you draw the line in the comments. The plan was insane, but it was our only hope. My brother Liam would work as the financial analyst, using his knowledge to guide the team through the corporate security protocols of the building. Arthur would provide the historical layout of the office, the memories of where everything was 25 years ago. And I would be the eye in the sky. I turned my suite's giant television screen into a command center, linking into my company's satellite network to get real-time schematics of the building in Ohio. We were going to pull off an impossible heist, from 5,000 miles away. The next few hours were the most tense of my life. My team on the ground in Ohio got into position. "We're outside the building, Ms. Thompson," the team leader whispered into my ear through my headset. "Ready to go on your command." We were all huddled around the screen, watching a live, thermal feed of the dark office building. But just as I was about to give the order to go in, there was a firm, loud knock on the door of my presidential suite. My personal security guard's voice crackled in my earpiece, full of panic. "Chloe, we have a problem. There's a man at your door. He says his name is Silas Blackwood. He's here. My blood turned to ice. My team in Ohio, thousands of miles away, was ready to launch a secret war. But the enemy was not in his castle. He was here. At my door. My family was frozen in a state of pure, animal terror. My father looked like he was about to have a heart attack. My mother was silently crying. For a moment, my own mind went completely blank. All my plans, all my strategies, had just been blown to pieces. The hunter had become the hunted, and we were trapped. Chloe, what do we do? Liam whispered, his voice trembling. I looked at the door, then at my family, then at the command center on my television screen. My head of security, Ben, was speaking into my earpiece. Ms. Thompson, what are your orders? We can have hotel security here in 30 seconds. But I knew that wouldn't work. A man like Silas Blackwood wouldn't be stopped by a hotel security guard. He wanted to see me. Hiding would only make it worse. I took a deep breath. Let him in, I said. The door opened, and Silas Blackwood walked into my suite. He was older, maybe in his early 70s, and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my first car. He was not a big man, but he had an aura of power and danger that seemed to suck all the air out of the room. He completely ignored my terrified parents and my brother. His cold gray eyes, the eyes of a shark, were fixed only on me. He smiled, a thin, humorless expression. So, you're the famous CT, he said, his voice calm and almost gentle, which was far more terrifying than if he had been yelling. I must say, I'm impressed. He walked further into the room, looking around at my makeshift command center. I heard you've been asking questions about my business, so I thought I'd come and answer them in person. In fact, he said, sitting down in an armchair without being invited, I came to offer you a job. I had to play along. I had to keep him talking. Every second he was here was a second my team in Ohio wasn't caught. I had my security team on standby, but I also had a live heist I was supposed to be running. I was fighting a war on two fronts, one in my ears and one right in front of my face. I thought of my grandfather teaching me to play chess. The game isn't just what's on the board, Chloe, he had said. It's what's in your opponent's head. Silas made his insane offer. He said he was getting old, and that he had no heir to his vast, shadowy empire. He said he saw the same ruthless ambition in me that he had in himself. Your parents are fools, driven by fear, he said, gesturing at them with a wave of his hand. Your brother is just a banker. But you are a shark, Chloe. Just like me. I am not offering you a job. I am offering you my kingdom. Was it a trick? A test? Or was the most dangerous man I had ever met actually trying to make me his heir? While he was talking, I was giving quiet, coded instructions into the tiny microphone on my collar. The west wall. Check the ventilation shafts. I was trying to keep my voice steady, to give nothing away. My family just watched, their faces a mixture of terror and awe, as I played this insane high-stakes game. My team on the ground in Ohio was moving through the dark, empty office building, getting closer and closer to the safe. The tension was almost unbearable. I'm literally trying to outsmart a monster who is sitting 5 feet away from me, all while commanding a secret mission a world away. This has to be the most high-pressure situation of my life. What's the most intense, pressure-filled moment you've ever had to handle? How did you manage to keep your cool when everything was on the line? My team finally reached Silas's private office. We're at the safe, Chloe, my team leader whispered in my ear. Our specialist is getting to work. This was it. The moment of truth. In the suite, Silas seemed to sense the shift. He stopped talking about his offer and leaned forward, his friendly mask dropping away, revealing the cold predator underneath. But before we talk about the future, he said, his voice now like ice, we need to settle the past. I believe your father has something that belongs to me. A little black book. I'd like it back. Now. He knew. He had known all along. This wasn't a job offer. This was a shakedown. He was here for the ledger. Just as the full weight of his demand hit me, the safecracker's voice crackled in my earpiece. "We're in," he whispered. "The safe is open." A jolt of triumph shot through me. We had beaten him. But the safecracker's next words made my blood run cold. "But, Chloe, there's no ledger in here. There's no book. The safe, it's completely empty." I stared at Silas Blackwood, my mind refusing to process what I had just heard. He saw the look of shock on my face, and a slow, cruel smile spread across his lips. "Looking for this?" he asked. And from the inside pocket of his tailored jacket, he slowly pulled out a small, black, leather-bound ledger. He had it the whole time. The trip, the team, the heist. It was all for nothing. He hadn't come to Hawaii to stop us. He had come to watch us fail. The little black book sat in Silas Blackwood's hand, a symbol of my complete and utter defeat. My elaborate, 1,000-mile heist had been a fool's errand. My team in Ohio was now in danger, my family was trapped, and the monster wasn't in a distant office building. He was here, in my room, and he had won. The air in the suite was thick with the bitter taste of failure. My father, Frank, looked like he was going to crumble into dust. The game was over. But Silas wasn't gloating, not yet. He looked at me with a strange kind of respect. "I knew about your little company for a while," he said, his voice calm. "I have to admit, I was impressed. That's why I came myself." He explained that the empty safe wasn't just a trick, it was a test. A test of my ambition, my resources, and my courage. "And you passed, Chloe," he said, his voice dropping low. "You passed with flying colors. Which is why my offer to you is real. Join me. Be my heir. Your family will be safe, and you and I will run the world together." For the first time since this nightmare began, my father spoke up. He stood up, his legs shaky but his voice surprisingly strong. "Don't do it, Chloe," he pleaded, looking at me with more love than I had seen in his eyes my entire life. "Don't become him. Don't let this darkness take you too." It was the bravest thing I had ever seen him do. He was choosing my soul over his own safety. His words, and the impossible choice in front of me, triggered a memory. Not of chess, but of the early days of Ether. I had a business partner who betrayed me, who stole my code and tried to launch a copycat app. I was devastated. But my lawyers told me a lawsuit would take years. So I did something else. I worked for a week without sleep and released a massive free update to my app that made his stolen code completely useless. I didn't destroy his weapon. I made it obsolete. A new plan, a final, desperate gamble, clicked into place in my mind. Silas thought the little black book was his greatest weapon, his shield against the world. He thought he was offering me a choice between joining him or being destroyed. But what if there was a third option? What if I could make his weapon completely and utterly useless? I looked at him, and for the first time since he walked in, I smiled. "That's a very generous offer, Silas," I said, my voice sweet and calm. "But you're a businessman. You know that before I can accept a partnership, I need to see the assets." I gestured to the book in his hand. "What's in it that's so important? What kind of power am I inheriting?" I was playing to his greatest weakness, his massive ego. He wanted to show me how powerful he was. He took the bait. A cruel, proud smile spread across his face. "Power, my dear girl," he said, "is making sure your enemies can never speak." He opened the book and began to gloat, reading off names, dates, and the details of decades-old crimes. He was confessing, proving how untouchable he was. As he spoke, his eyes gleaming with pride, I kept my hands under the table, my fingers flying across the screen of my phone. This is it. The final move of the game, where you bet everything on one last desperate play. I have to ask you, have you ever had a moment where you had to pretend to be weak in order to win? A time you had to use your brain instead of your fists to get out of an impossible situation? Let me know. As Silas read aloud a particularly ugly secret, He must have seen the look on my brother Liam's face. A look not of fear, but of dawning, triumphant horror. Silas followed Liam's gaze down to my phone, which I now raised from under the table. I wasn't texting. I wasn't recording. I was live-streaming. His whole confession, his offer, his gloating, all of it had been broadcast live to Ether's 10 million followers and had been sent directly to every major news outlet on the planet. The little black book was now public knowledge. Its secrets were free. His weapon was useless. His power was gone. In the distance, I could hear the faint sound of approaching sirens. The trap wasn't in Ohio. It was right here, in this room. My family's last stand wasn't a heist. It was a confession. And the ghost in the machine wasn't his money. It was me. A few months have passed. The world knows the truth about Silas Blackwood. His empire of fear has crumbled. Arthur Miller has his justice, his name finally cleared. And my family. We are healing. We are talking. We are a messy, broken, but finally honest family. My father and I are even taking a trip together. Just the two of us. It's a new beginning. My family's long, dark night is finally over, and it brought us all into the light. Thank you for being here with me through this incredible journey. If you believe that the smartest weapon is always the truth, and that justice is a dish best served to the entire world, please like this video, share it, and subscribe for more stories. Thank you for watching.